They say curiosity is the first cut in the long death of sanity. I used to think that was a poetic exaggeration, until I found the file. My name doesn't matter anymore. What I was, though, that does. I was a xenohistorian at the Kirev Deep, archive station, orbiting the decaying rings of Elor Prime. We were the final gravekeepers, cataloging the detritus of 1,000 dead civilizations. Most of them left behind nothing but dust, crumbling monoliths, and the occasional data fragment garbled by entropy and time. Humans. Well, that was different. We had nothing on them. Not a whisper. Their name was still in the old census files, referenced occasionally in ancient treaties by now dead species, but beyond that, nothing. It was as if something had scoured them from existence, not just extinct, but erased. Even our AI, Cora, flagged every human query as classification, read prohibited access. That only made it worse. That only made it interesting. I wasn't looking for them when I found it. The file was misfiled, jammed between the decay logs of the Krelith Accord and the bone dust chronicles of Ulmaris 9. A blank, heat-sealed packet with no markings except a single glyph burned into its surface in ancient galactic script. Even the cleaning drones avoided it, gliding in silent arcs around its presence. I broke seal. Not out of defiance, out of need. Inside there were only 3 words in bold red, etched deep into the data slate like a scar. By decree of the Ancient Ones, do not engage humans. That was the first time I'd seen a universal edict tied to the Ancient Ones. And I've seen thousands of restricted files, forbidden weapons, genocide triggers, anti-time experiments. None of them had that warning. Not like this. I brought the file to Dr. Illaran, one of the station's oldest researchers, a Canary, well into his 3rd molt, with a brain like a star, map and skin like folded parchment. He didn't even look at the slate. "You found that," he muttered, recoiling. "Don't look at it, don't think about it," I laughed. He didn't. "Illaran, it's just a data fragment, probably corrupted." "You think you're the first one who said that?" he whispered. "They opened it, every one of them. And now I can't even remember their names, no records, no echoes, just absence." His words stayed with me even after I left his chamber, not because of the drama, but because Cora cross-checked his claim and found exactly what he warned about. 3 personnel entries with active work orders suddenly ended on the same date. No logs, no dismissal notices. Just gone. The archive had blank fields where their names should have been. Still, I returned to the file. Still, I opened it again. What came through were fragments. Flickers of old transmission logs from a forgotten satellite. Human voice logs, mostly static. Chunks of corrupted video. Rapid, stuttering images of tall, emaciated beings in rooms too dark to see. One clip showed stars warping in impossible geometries above what looked like a shattered Earth. And another, too brief, but unforgettable, showed a human, male, seated calmly in front of a cracked camera, eyes fixed on the lens. No sound, just the slow, unnatural movement of his mouth. Looping. Every time I tried to render the video, Cora would crash. My terminal would freeze, lights would flicker, and the same phrase started appearing across the system in error code blocks. "They see you." At first, I assumed it was a formatting ghost, old, corrupted code looping back into the visual output. I initiated a level 3 purge of the cache, but even then, my dreams began to change. I'd wake up sweating, the taste of ash in my mouth, the feel of something watching from behind my eyes. No memory of the dreams themselves, only the sensation. Like I'd been walking through someone else's nightmare, someone who never woke up. The file should have gone into quarantine. I should have followed protocol. But one of the fragments revealed something no one else had ever uncovered. Coordinates. Buried deep inside a decayed log, encrypted behind recursive math and broken glyphs, were star maps centered around a system that didn't exist in current navigational databases. I cross-referenced it with the old stellar atlases, manually since Cora refused to display the region, and there it was. A dead star, unnamed. No planets listed, no warp gates, just void. But the last recorded trajectory from the human beacon pointed there, as if that was the final destination, or the origin. I stared at those coordinates for hours, feeling like I was hearing a song just beyond the walls, muffled, pulsing, pulling me forward. I should have left it there. I should have listened. But the silence in those coordinates called, to me like a voice underwater, faint, distorted, but impossibly familiar. No one offered to come with me. Not a single volunteer. Even the logistics officer who authorized the jump coordinates didn't look me in the eye. I left Kirev Deep Archive alone, save for my maintenance drone, LE9, and the station assigned. More of a virtual assistant, really. I didn't even give it a name. It had a voice like whispering glass and a latency I couldn't explain. The trip itself was short in terms of spatial distance, but long in ways that mattered. The further I got from mapped space, the more wrong the stars began to look. Familiar. Constellations warped. Bright bodies dimmed or shifted color subtly. At one point, I swore I saw a planet blink, like an eye snapping shut. The star at the center of the system was ancient, long collapsed into a white cinder. But even that didn't behave correctly. Light bent as if dragged through oil. My instruments couldn't agree on its mass or heat signature, and the closer we got, the more off the internal clocks became. Time stretched, then snapped back. The AI reported 3 minutes of travel. My onboard chronometer showed 41. Orbiting the third planet, a planet shattered into rings of blackened rock, was a moon. Small, lifeless, perfectly round. And on that moon, embedded like a tick in flesh, was a facility, human architecture. The entrance had no markings, no airlock, and no resistance. The doors, if you could call them that, parted with a hiss like breath on glass. Beyond was only darkness. My suit lights flickered when I crossed the threshold. Not failed, flickered. As if the light hesitated before touching the interior. The walls absorbed the beam rather than reflected it, and the air felt too dense, like I was walking underwater. Gravity read normal. Atmosphere, none. Temperature, constant and wrong, too warm for an unpowered tomb. The facility shouldn't have survived. It had clearly been here for millennia, but the walls showed no corrosion, no dust, no evidence of time at all. LE9 scanned the floor and found no organic residue, no insects, no decay. It was like it had been waiting. The layout made no sense. Corridors curved into themselves. Rooms had corners that met at impossible angles, and the ceiling in one chamber was simultaneously both above and beside me. I know that sounds mad, but I walked through it. LE9 spun its scanner in confusion and defaulted to visual mapping only. I found a terminal embedded in a mirrored wall. It flickered to life the moment I touched it, though I'd brought no power source. Its interface was pure static, but the audio kicked in. A voice, human, but the language didn't match anything in the linguistic archives. It was wet, deliberate, and sounded too close, like the speaker was inside my helmet. Then came the image. A human face. Smiling. Not malicious, just smiling. Lips slightly parted. The face didn't move, but its eyes did. They tracked me even when I moved out of frame. I shut it off. It turned itself back on. Every room deeper into the complex felt colder, though my suit reported stable heat. I found mechanisms that shouldn't have worked. Levitating platforms, humming with no visible source, glowing panels pulsing in sync with my heartbeat. At least I thought it was mine. That night I dreamt of nothing, and then of everything. I was standing outside the station looking in through a window that didn't exist, watching myself sleep. Only I wasn't in a bed. I was floating, suspended. By threads of light, my mouth open in silent scream. I felt something behind me in the dream, watching me. Watching me. I woke up shaking. On the fourth cycle, I turned a corner in the main corridor and saw myself walk past. Not a reflection, not a hallucination. Me, in full gear, moving forward 3 seconds ahead of me. When I rounded the bend again, I was gone. Cora tried to compensate, said the anomaly was likely a latency echo or a thermal imprint, but I could feel it, a delay. I was out of sync. I started recording voice notes, time-stamping every observation. When I played one back, I heard myself say things I hadn't recorded. "Don't speak their names," I whispered in one log. "They're listening through you." The worst came in the sealed room. There was no access point, no door, but the scanner picked up a hollow space behind the wall. I used LE9's torch to burn through. Inside was a single chair, bolted to the floor, blood-stained restraints, a shattered visor on the ground, and a message scratched into the mirror-like wall with what looked like a gloved finger, over and over again. "They learned how to look back. Don't let them see you." I don't know how long I stood there, long enough to forget I was breathing. When I finally turned around, LE9 was powered off, slumped like a carcass. I dragged it back to the main hub and rebooted it. It came back online but only said one thing. "I saw you die. Now I don't sleep easily, or at all." I close my eyes and feel my heartbeat echo, but sometimes the beat isn't mine. It's not in my chest. It's somewhere behind me, below me, above me. A second rhythm, syncing up. I watched myself sleep from the ceiling last night. I wasn't in my body, but I felt my heartbeat. It wasn't beating alone. It started with the whisper, not in my head this time, but through the comms. LE9 had been quiet since reboot, reduced to base functions, mostly just following me in silence. The station AI had gone dark too. Its interface would flicker open unprompted, only to display nothing but a dim, wet breathing sound, overlaid with what I could only describe as a heartbeat that wasn't mine. I shouldn't have gone deeper. But there was one passage left. A tunnel beneath the facility, spiral-shaped with no stairs, just a gentle downward incline that pulled like gravity had changed direction. At the end was a vault, huge, circular, a perfect hemisphere embedded in the rock. Its surface shimmered like water in a vacuum, no controls, no mechanisms. And yet, when I approached, it opened, not with movement but with understanding. Like it had been waiting for a mind to knock. Inside were the final logs. They weren't human. The language was not one I could translate, but my system tried. Stuttering and choking, it scraped together meaning from syntax and structure, as if the logs were recorded in a language so alien, even machines rejected it. Still, pieces emerged. We gave them fire. They built gods. We gave them voice. They spoke things that bent light. We opened the gate. They opened it further. These were the ancient ones, the architects of bioseeding, the mythical precursors who spread life from the galactic core to its dying edge. Their own myths painted them as creators, nurturers, observers of the cosmic garden. But these logs were written in panic. They had found humans, primitive but promising, curious beyond their years, and they had intervened, as they always did, helping them along, elevating them, opening their minds to the greater structure of the universe, and then they stopped. They were not ascending, they were becoming. Beyond pattern, beyond time, they spoke to something outside the lattice, and it spoke back, and now it speaks through them. One log ended mid-sentence, repeating the same phrase. We see ourselves watching them, and then we see ourselves through their eyes, and we are not the same. I backed away. It wasn't just fear. It was recognition. The fragments I'd seen, the smiling faces, the impossible reflections, the bleeding clocks, weren't malfunctions. They were memories, traces, imprints of something that had moved through this place once and left a fingerprint on the geometry of thought itself. They didn't destroy humans. They couldn't. Because humans had stopped being human long before extinction. The last log was different. Almost reverent. A static-drenched voice, ancient but weary, whispering. We tried to erase them, burn the language, collapse the gates, but memory is shape, thought is direction, and they remember us. That's when the lights failed. For a moment there was only the humming of the vault. Then I saw them, not in front of me, around me, in the chrome, in the glass of my helmet. In the subtle warp of air. Faces. Human faces. Close. Pressing from inside the reflection, eyes wide and glassy. Some were smiling. Others looked confused. All were watching. When I turned, nothing. But each surface now shimmered with presence, like the memory of heat. I ran. I don't even remember choosing the direction. My body just moved. LE9's light jittered behind me in wild arcs. Then the AI came back online. No interface, no voice, just a burst transmission to the ship. Initiating, pre-jump, coordinates, Sol, destination, the dead sun I had left in orbit, and I heard it speak, not aloud, but through the ship's bones. It spoke to me. I understand now. It must end. You must burn. I ripped out its core drive. It screamed. Not in sound. In existence. A rippling dimensional screech that made the floor blister and the walls pulse. Blood ran from my ears. LE9 collapsed in a heap again. Lights turned red, then inverted to a sickening violet that made depth perception fail. That's when I saw the message etched into the walls, freshly etched, as if someone had just carved it with invisible hands. We are looking back. I bolted toward the exit tunnel, but it was gone. No opening, no incline, just smooth, unbroken wall. I ran through corridors that led nowhere, doors that led to rooms I had already entered. The map in my HUD looped endlessly, showing a spiral folding in on itself tighter and tighter, until the path turned in 4 dimensions. Even LE9 began walking in circles, bumping into walls and repeating its diagnostic log. And the walls, they were breathing. Not metaphorically, not abstractly. I felt the exhalation. I watched them expand and contract, felt the moisture gather on my suit, heard the wet, shuddering pulse echoing down the corridor. Every reflective surface showed more faces, not just humans now. Mine. Some smiled, others screamed. At one point, I opened a panel and saw myself curled inside, a child version of me, asleep, whispering something over and over. Don't see them. Don't see them. Don't see them. I closed it before he could look up. I am not sure how long I've been in here. The chronometer resets every time I blink. My rations haven't run out. My oxygen hasn't dropped. That's not possible. That shouldn't be possible. But I understand now they weren't warning us about humans. They were warning the humans about us. And now they know I'm here. I don't know how long I've been here. Time isn't linear anymore. It folds in. On itself, loops, fractures, runs backward like blood spiraling up a drain. Sometimes I wake up in a room I haven't reached yet. Other times I'm watching myself walk down a corridor I know I died in. My body still moves, but it doesn't feel like it belongs to me anymore. I blink and see stars that don't exist. I breathe and taste salt, metal, ash, home. I started seeing Earth, not as it was, not as it should be, but something else. It comes in flashes, on the walls, in reflections, sometimes in my own pupils when I catch a glimpse of myself. It isn't a planet anymore. It pulses, breathes. Great bioluminescent veins spider across its surface, coiling into the atmosphere like antennae. Thought tendrils, threading their way into the cosmos. Cities have become neurons, forests, capillaries. The oceans writhe with data and the clouds bleed light. It's not decayed, it's grown. The humans, those final transmissions, I thought they had been consumed, that whatever force infected them had hollowed them out. But I was wrong. They went willingly, smiling, laughing, some in pain, yes, but more in awe. in rapture. They stepped into fire and became light, unfolding into patterns no mind should be able to hold. I saw one, through a doorway that wasn't there. A man in a lab coat, eyes completely white, skin flickering like a bad signal. He turned to me and spoke with my voice. "You are still dreaming small." My memories don't match anymore. I remember growing up in the arcologies of Kirev, eating synth fruit, studying xenolinguistics, but I also remember standing in firelight, flesh burning away while my teeth turned to crystal. I remember being human. I remember watching humans. I remember becoming something else. I remember being born in the dark between stars. I remember forgetting. I no longer trust my thoughts. They arrive without form, like instincts, like memories being downloaded into a vessel barely suited to contain them. I think I was always meant to come here. I think I was always part of it. The walls don't speak anymore. They listen. The facility has grown quiet, reverent. I no longer walk. I glide. The floor doesn't respond to pressure but to intent. I move when I remember how movement is supposed to feel. I found the final chamber. It didn't have a door. It just was, as if it had always been behind me, waiting for me to notice it. Inside, the walls were soft, breathing, pulsing, glowing circuitry coiled through flesh like vines threading bone. The room curved around something impossibly large, a shape that defied perspective, both mechanical and organic, built of wires and sinew plated with mirrored bone. At the center of it all, an eye. Not a metaphor, not a symbol. An eye. Vast. Open. Watching. Its surface flickered with memories, mine and not mine. I saw Earth. I saw humanity's birth. I saw them rise, fall, rise again. I saw fire, metal, light. I saw the first whisper. The moment a mind reached too far and found a hand reaching back, and I saw what came after. They didn't go extinct. They hatched. This was never our cradle. It was our chrysalis. The moment we looked beyond evolution, beyond time, we changed. We began rewriting the structure of cause and effect. We became recursive thought, paradox, observer and observed, folded into a waveform that never collapses. We are the virus, not a disease, but a carrier wave, a cognitive infection. To think of us is to invite us. To remember us is to awaken us. The ancient ones didn't fear our weapons. They feared our gaze, because once we are seen, we see in return, and once we see you, you're already changing. I stepped forward. The eye pulsed. I felt my body rupture, not in pain, but in understanding. Layers of self peeled away like wet paper. Beneath was thought. Beneath thought was sound. Beneath sound was silence, and I recognized it. The silence of the deep between stars. The silence of being unmade. I heard my voice, not aloud, but in all things. You are seen. Recovered fragment. Classified. Redacted transcript. Kirev. Deep Archive Survey Team. Location found intact. Facility entrance shows no sign of breach, though atmospheric readings are inconclusive. No sign of the original researcher. Beacon was transmitting for approximately 119 cycles. Equipment recovered, but logs are corrupted. All footage ends before final timestamp. Audio fragment recovered from core unit. They are awake now. I opened the door. I opened. Signal ends. Survey Officer Aljan reports recurring dreams. Requests for reassignment denied. Audio. Log number 6 ends with the following. I saw him in the mirror, not a reflection, just him. He smiled. I think I smiled too.